I feel like a princess. So ladies who are watching these videos, once you will come, you'll be walking here in Florence, you will feel like princesses in the 16th century and the 15th century, and imagine Donatello, Raffaello, or Michelangelo walking down here, or maybe a pope coming to visit one of these aristocrats, and you just see them passing by, or you're an important lady and you are going around with your chariot and your horses, and everybody's asking something from you, like some money or something. So
I think
yes, it's time for getting something to eat.
One of the things that always amazes me about Florence is how little it takes to feel transported to another time. You walk through a few narrow streets in the historic center, turn a corner, and suddenly the modern world seems to fade away. Some views have remained almost unchanged for centuries, and for a moment you feel like you're seeing the same streets, the same buildings, and the same corners that people saw hundreds and sometimes even thousands of years ago. That is one of the great powers of Florence, and honestly, it's one of the great powers of Italian cities in general. Today, here in Florence, we are visiting the Uffizi Gallery, one of the most famous museums in the world and one of the most visited cultural sites on the planet. Inside, you find some of the most important works in the history of art. Its permanent collection is not just impressive, it's one of those places that, if you come to Florence, you really shouldn't miss. In this video, I'll take you inside the museum and show you some of its most celebrated masterpieces. But this video is not only about the artworks themselves. I also want to share a few personal reflections and some practical advice on how to visit a place like this without being swallowed by the machine of mass tourism. Because yes, the Uffizi is extraordinary, but it is also extremely crowded.
We are walking on Ponte Vecchio. Ponte Vecchio literally means the old bridge. Ponte Vecchio is a very characteristic place in Florence. It's full of shops and traditional shops, a lot of jewelries. Of course, if you come and buy something here, try to bargain. Things are very expensive, and there's so many people. We're just in April, but there are a lot of tourists, but we know why. This is one of the most beautiful places on earth.
And when you visit one of the most famous museums in the world, it's very easy to feel overwhelmed by the number of people around you. It's easy to move from room to room, from masterpiece to another, without really seeing anything. And that would be a shame, because these works deserve more than a quick photo and a few seconds of attention. They deserve to be understood. They deserve to be experienced in the right way, and that's exactly what I want to talk about in this video. If you enjoyed this walk through Florence, please leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and let me know your thoughts in the comments. Alright, let's head inside. Getting in is surprisingly easy today. There are a few people around, but we're not in the peak tourist season yet, so the lines move quickly. The staff is welcoming. Everything runs smoothly, and before long we're inside the museum. One thing to know is that the Uffizi is almost meant to be visited in reverse. You begin on the upper floor, where the oldest works are displayed, and then gradually make your way down through the centuries as you move through the collection. For this visit, we also purchased access to the Vasari Corridor, the famous elevated passageway that connects the Uffizi to Pitti Palace. And that's where my first reflection begins. One of the things that makes Italy so unique is that the places housing the artwork are often just as fascinating as the artwork itself. In many countries, you visit a museum to see what's inside. In Italy, the museum is often part of the attraction. The rooms matter, the building matters, the history of the building matters. It's almost like standing inside a series of Russian nesting dolls. You come for the paintings, then you realize the rooms are historic. Then you realize the palace itself is historic. And then you discover that the entire place played a role in shaping history. The Uffizi is a perfect example of that. Most people know it today as one of the world's great museums, But that wasn't its original purpose. Cosimo I de Medici commissioned this enormous complex to house the city's government offices, and Florence needed a lot of offices. At the time, the city had an incredibly sophisticated political system, with numerous institutions, councils, administrative bodies, and representatives involved in governing the Republic. It was a complicated machine. Cosimo's idea was simple: bring all of those offices together in one place, right next to Palazzo Vecchio, where the Medici could keep a close eye on the city's political life. So these hallways weren't originally museum galleries. These rooms weren't built to display paintings. For centuries, they were the center of city's administration and political power. Honestly, the building itself could almost be a museum even if every painting disappeared tomorrow. And then there's the Vasari Corridor. If the Uffizi weren't already unique enough, Florence somehow takes it one step further. The corridor is essentially a private elevated route built above the city. It runs over streets, crosses above the Arno river, and allowed the Medici family to move safely between Palazzo Vecchio, the Uffizi, and Pitti Palace, where they eventually chose to live. As I walked through it, I couldn't help thinking about something. In a strange way, it isn't all that different from what happens today. Powerful people have always looked for ways to move efficiently, privately, and securely. Today, it might be private elevators, restricted entrances, or CEOs flying by helicopter from one Manhattan rooftop to another. 500 years ago, the Medici built an entire passageway above a city. And maybe that's why Florence feels so modern despite being so old. Because during the Renaissance, Florence was doing something very similar to what places like Silicon Valley do today. It was a relatively small place packed with an extraordinary talent. Artists, inventors, thinkers, entrepreneurs, people experimenting with new ideas and changing the future before the rest of the world even realized what was happening. For a brief moment in history, Florence became one of those places where an incredible amount of human talent was concentrated in a very small corner of the world, and the results are still visible today.
So Silvia, how is it going? We are in the Uffizi Gallery. Actually, we are on the terrace at the bar because we need a coffee.
Yes, because there's so much walking that you really need to get a coffee or a cappuccino for me. There's so much to see. We started from the second floor with Greek and Roman art, and also with Michelangelo and Raffaello and many others. So the humanism and Renaissance. Oh, it's overwhelming, really. It's
Yes, a lot of people, but amazing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, a lot of people. Yes.
Probably it's better to come early in the morning.
Early in the morning,
Yeah.
but even before it opens at 8:15, Yes, cappuccino for
Grazie.
me. Thank you.
Okay, a posto, grazie.
Yeah.
The coffee's arrived.
Coffee arrived. Maybe even a bit before, slightly before 8:15 when it opens. If you arrive around 7:30 and you stay in the line, maybe it's a good idea. Or just right before it closes in the afternoon.
Yeah, the staff is very nice.
Yes, they're very sweet people, very ready to help you if you need anything. We had a very good impression about them, and everyone here is really has a lot of patience, even if there's so much people. And if you sit here in the terrace having your coffee, sometimes you will hear the bells.
Yes, this place is amazing. Take a look.
Yeah, this is really it's the icon of Italy, I think. Said by two Italians who think you can trust us. It's the icon of Italy, really.
Yes, but now we have to continue.
Yes,
Yeah.
now we go down to the first floor where we'll find Caravaggio, Vasari, and Tiziano as well. And then we continue in the Vasari Corridor, where we're going to find many other sculptures. And among those, the head of the dying Alexander. That is one of the very rare portraits of Alexander that was thought to be an original in the past.
You have to finish your cappuccino because we have to go.
Yes, I'm very long with my cappuccino, yes.
Okay.
As we continued through the galleries, stopping in front of Botticelli's masterpieces, I found myself thinking about something. A lot of people spend their time looking for ways to escape the crowd. They search for the quietest hours. They arrive first thing in the morning. Some even pay a premium for private tours after the museum has closed to the public. And honestly, I understand why. Those experiences can be incredible. But standing here, surrounded by all these people, I realized something. The crowd isn't really the problem, at least not the main one. The real problem is arriving without any context. Because when you know what you're looking at, everything changes. When you understand what a painting matters, when you recognize the symbols, when you know the story the artist is trying to tell, the people around you start to fade into the background. Take Botticelli's Venere. It's one of the most famous paintings in the museum, and there's almost always a crowd standing in front of it. But if you understand why it's important, if you know even a few of the ideas hidden inside it, suddenly your experience becomes completely different. You're no longer just looking at a famous painting. You're engaging with it. You're discovering it. You're having a conversation with it. And that's something a crowd can't take away from you. Because great works of art are never just beautiful objects. They contain ideas, symbols, messages, layers of meaning. They are trying to communicate something. The challenge isn't finding a moment when nobody else is in the room. The challenge is knowing where to look. Once you have that, you don't need much. A few minutes, a small space in front of the painting, a little curiosity, and the artwork does the rest. In many ways, I think travelers focus on the wrong thing. They spend a lot of energy trying to find the perfect conditions. But what matters far more is arriving prepared. Because once you're standing in front of the masterpiece, that's not the ideal moment to start learning everything from scratch. That's the work that should happen before the visit begins. Anyway, with that thought in mind, we continued our tour, and eventually it was time to enter the Vasari Corridor. As we walked through it, we passed near Santa Felicita, where the Medici family could attend Mass from a private balcony connected directly to the corridor itself. No crowds, no public entrance, just a direct route reserved for one of the most powerful families in Renaissance Europe. The corridor seems to go on forever, and eventually it delivers you all the way to Pitti Palace. And what a place that is! Massive. If you'd like to see a dedicated video about Pitti Palace, let me know in the comments. What struck me most, though, was something surprisingly simple. A few hours earlier, we had entered the Uffizi on one side of the Arno river, and now, without ever really leaving the museum experience behind, we found ourselves on the other side of the city. Only in Florence can a museum visit feel like a journey through an entire chapter of history. But now we are hungry, so let's go find something to eat. We're heading to Florence Central Market, one of those places where you can find a little bit of everything. We'll probably make a separate video about it in the future. Let me know what you think about today's video in the comments, and I'll see you in the next one right here in Italy.